Hello, family, and welcome back to the Explore the Extraordinary podcast. My name is Betty, and today I'm joined by Shannon. And Shannon is a podcast host. She's a voice actor. She's also a psychic medium. And we connected several months ago. I was on Shannon's podcast, and we had such a great, vibrant conversation. I knew that I definitely wanted to repay the energy in this way by having her to come contribute to the community at IANDS. And so I'm really excited to introduce her to everybody. And I'm going to toss it right over to you, Shannon, to introduce yourself. Thanks for your willingness to serve.
Well, thank you for your willingness to serve, Betty. I am a big, uh, I want to say fan of yours, which is kind of a funny thing to say. But I just love everything about you. I just think that your story is so impressive and not impressed. I don't want to use that word, but I too am a recovering addict. And so, I feel so drawn to your story and so inspired by your story. It's just, it's just so inspiring to see how someone can turn their life around so fast. It probably didn't feel fast to you, but truly that's why I'm really appreciative of you sharing your story because it does matter and it does give people hope that look, no matter how down you are, how down and out you are, there's always hope and you can heal. So that being said, I will just say that, and I'm not sure where to look because we're not in gallery view. So if I'm looking strangely, that's why my eyeballs are in the wrong direction. But um, I am a podcast host. My podcast is called Magic is Real, and I interview near-death experiencers. But I also interview people who've had spiritually transformative experiences. Generally, I interview people about their own spiritual journeys and about mediumship, spirit connection, metaphysical topics. I'm open, as are you. And so thank you for allowing that space. I am a voice actor and I'm also a psychic medium. And I will just say I was not aware that anyone could be a psychic medium. I didn't realize that we all have this gift. You're a medium, I'm a medium. And it's just a matter of, well, as I've heard it said, everyone can learn to play piano as long as you have hands. And, neurologically you're capable of doing it. But some people are going to be Chopin and some people are going to be just sort of okay at it. So I think we're all very capable of this. It takes belief, it takes faith, understanding, and practice. If you really want to do this work, it's available to you. If you believe in it, you're obsessed about it like I was. So I was a voice actor full time, but I always had this fascination with near-death experiences and the spiritual realm. And I was really into mediums and watching readings. It just gives you that sort of hope and excitement that this isn't all there is. And I felt really inspired by that. So ultimately, I developed a vocal disorder. So I wasn't able to work anymore in voiceover, and I was crushed and devastated. And then the pandemic hit. So during this time, I needed to keep myself busy. I was not working, and I began deeply studying spirituality. And I read a bunch of books by mediums which said that every one of them said, you can learn to do this, which was news to me. I thought you had to be born. And some people are born seeing spirit and really seeing them very clearly. That's not my situation. I was a very, very highly sensitive kid. I was in therapy at age 2 through 5 because they thought I might be autistic because I just so much overwhelm and stimulus, and I stopped speaking for 3 years as a protective mechanism to sort of shut down all of the incoming stimulus. So I know that I was born very, very sensitive. I just didn't know that I was a medium. I now can look back and see that there were experiences I had. I remember being laying on the couch and I had the chicken pox. And I always thought it might have been a hallucination, but I saw this man walking down our driveway wearing a top hat and a cane and this long trench coat. And he was walking down the driveway. And my parents said that I always used to talk about No Man. I said, there's this guy that's around called No Man, and I was afraid of him. He scared me a lot. So there are little things like that where now looking back, I'm like, oh, that was probably a spirit encounter, and I didn't realize it. I would wake up screaming. My mom said she would come in and think that I was being murdered. She'd have to come in because I would wake up with night terrors and screaming and all of that sort of stuff. So as an anxious person, as a highly sensitive person, I know that I was sort of primed for this work, but it wasn't until I had to sort of give up for a while on my chosen career that I began to really delve into this world. And then I started taking classes on mediumship development and was just absolutely shocked when one of my first workshops with medium Fleur, who's one of the best mediums I've ever seen and know of. She was living in LA at the time. And so I went over to actually, I did one thing at her house and another thing in a workshop setting. And she led us through a meditation. And I'd never done this before. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be the quote unquote worst in the class. I don't know what I'm doing. She led us through exercises, and all of us were able to pick up psychic information, medium uh, messages from quote unquote dead people who are not dead. They're just in a different form. And I got so excited. I called my mom and I said, Mom, she was always into that stuff too. And I'm like, this is real. I can do this. So that sort of spurred this excitement for learning. And then all through the pandemic, I gave free readings as practice. And at first, yeah, I sucked at it. That's kind of the nature of it, is you don't exactly know what it feels like. You're still adapting to understanding, um, this is what it feels like when a spirit's communicating with me versus my own thought. I still, as a professional medium, sometimes get the two confused, or it's not a perfect science. But what you do is you really do a lot of sitting in the power, which is meditating and getting used to the feeling of your own energy, so that when another energy moves in, you can tell the difference. Oh, that's not mine. This sounds different. The way this comes in. So that's why practicing is so essential, because it allows you to practice. So if I say to you, okay, Betty, there's a grandmother around you and her name is Angela. And you say, no, okay, she's wearing a brooch. No. And I go, okay, well, maybe I'm making this, maybe this is in my imagination. Now, that doesn't always mean that it's in your imagination, but I'm just saying, for all intents and purposes, doing a lot of readings where I was wrong. Then when I would get it right, I go, oh, that felt different. When I said, oh, your grandmother's name is Mabel and she's from this particular state and she was born in 1947, or before, she would have been before then. You would say, yes, that makes sense to me. And then I was able to say, okay, you know what? When that information came in, it sort of came in sort of in the back of my mind, like a soft whisper, and I felt a tingle on my scalp at the same time. And all of these energies can be so subtle. You're teaching yourself to tune in to the subtle energy of the spirit world. Sometimes it's not so subtle. Sometimes I'll feel a rush of energy and suddenly I'm getting stuff so clearly that I'm like, okay, this spirit really wants to communicate and I know I'm right. But it took me years. It took me years of practice, sitting in meditation, uh, not being afraid to be wrong, and trusting my intuition to get to a place where now I'm able to give readings professionally, and most of the time do a good job, do a really good job of allowing spirit to use me to do work for them. Because as mediums, our client our client isn't actually our client. The spirit world is our client. Yes, the person across from us is paying for us, and yes, we are holding space for them and hopefully giving them comfort, hopefully helping them in their healing journey. But really, I'm just the vessel. I'm just allowing spirit by asking them, please use me to communicate what you really want your loved one who's left behind to know. And the purpose of that is to bring healing or unanswered questions, have them answered for the person that is sitting across from us. So, yeah, I think ultimately it's just important to remember that I'm not any different from you or anyone else. It's a matter of faith, belief, practice, passion, and trust. Trust. It's
Yes, I
my
love
tattoo.
that.
Yeah.
That's so great. Thank you for sharing that. I was just telling Shannon before we started recording that I've recorded 3 podcasts today, and I was just talking to another medium, and the story is so similar.
Is
I
it?
mean, it's amazing because, and I feel like as you were talking, my whole crown started to light up with tingles, and I was like, okay. And I recently went and saw a medium, somebody that I just had on the podcast recently too. Her name's Michelle Claire. And she was
Yeah.
saying in my reading, oh, your psychic abilities are opening up. And now I keep interviewing medium after medium after medium. And I feel like perhaps that's a sign from spirit as well. But
I
I
think
love
it
that the
is.
confirmation that I hear from so many mediums is that we all have access to these abilities. And I think that that's really powerful, especially for people who are looking for a more purpose-filled life, more meaning out of life. How do I achieve these things? And you have access to that intuition the same way that somebody who does it professionally does as well. So I really love that you're bringing that up. And I want to talk about, you already said so much about kind of like the self-doubt and getting it wrong and being okay with that. But what do you think, if you could pinpoint a part in your life that kind of really opened up your perception to this realm of understanding, what would you say that it was?
I want to say a couple of things. It's again, as you know, in evolution, it wasn't one big thing, but it was piecing together all of these things. Um, but honestly, it was my 12-step recovery. So I'm a sex and love addict and a fantasy, I would say sex, love, and fantasy addict. And so I went into 12-step. I was open-minded, but I never liked group stuff. I never liked the hand-holding aspect and the corniness of that kind of thing. I always thought of myself as like, yeah, I don't know, maybe too cool for that kind of thing, or I don't know. But I went in there agnostic, not spiritual at all. And it was in surrendering to the idea that God might, let's just say, even if you're not 100% sold on this whole God thing, let's just act as if. So pretend it doesn't even matter because the result is the same. You're giving up control, handing it over to a higher power, and trusting that, look, what you're doing, it's not working. So give it up to God, whatever you don't have to call it God, whatever you're comfortable with, source, the universe, handing it over and then watching the miracles happen, which I want to say it's not just God, it's you. I mean, it's also you co-creating with God when you decide, I want to I want to heal. I want to start living with integrity. I want to um, learn, take contrary action, and so that I can be proud of myself and that I start to have more self-esteem. So seeing the miracles within the program is sort of like what opened me up to the idea of it. And like I said, I was always really, I believed in mediums. I just didn't know what all of it really meant. And I would say too that the second the second answer is that even as a medium, I have my own skepticism. Sometimes I'll be like, am I really a medium or am I just getting lucky? There are times when I'll have a not so great reading and I'm like, maybe I was just lucky all those times. Maybe, but sorry, my nose is itchy today. Maybe it's a spiritual thing. Maybe it's the weather. Um, so there was one day where I always thought that I had to do this. I have to light candles and do my prayers and wear my crystals before reading. And or else I might not be able to connect. Or maybe because I'm on antidepressants, I'm not really connecting. Maybe it's dulling my senses. Well, one day I got on a plane and a girl sat next to me and her mother in spirit came to me and for 5 hours talked to me as clear as day. Turned out she'd been a flight attendant. I'm getting chills. Turned out she'd been a flight attendant. So she lived her entire life on planes. I'm getting so many chills right now. She's probably with me because she ended up being one of my, not spirit, I don't want to say spirit guides, but she's one of my spirit people who has ever since then been with me. And I can call on her in a second. And this reading blew my mind because I was just on a plane. I was on antidepressants. I was not in any kind of a spiritual state. I was literally just looking at this girl and I just knew it all. And it just all came out. There wasn't one thing that came out wrong. And the details were like astounding. The names, the dates, the plate that told me what she was going to name her child. Um, and she said, that's the name that we chose, Savannah. How would I know that? Like just, and that was when I was like, magic is real. This is real. This is 100% real. I'm sold. Mic drop. Thank you, Spirit. And I had just been doubting my abilities that very week because I had a couple of readings that I didn't really get much. And this woman not only came in to help her daughter, who's only 23 and lost her best friend, who was her mom, she also came to help me and say, you got this. You can do this. And I'm going to show you right now. And it was this amazing thing that we did together. And she kept talking to me for days. I kept texting Maddie going, your mom just said this. She'd go, oh my God, expletive, expletive, expletive. How is this happening? And I was like, it's real. It's real. That's all I know. I may not have control over it all the time, but that was like my biggest, whenever I doubt myself, I'm like, just remember Maddie's mom and the airplane and everything that happened for 5 hours straight. There's no way I could have channeled for that long and
Wow.
have it not be real.
That is so awesome. And, I tell people that I get to work with all the time, and maybe not in this particular capacity of like being a medium, but just trusting your intuition as well.
Yeah.
If you can go off of one piece of tangible evidence that you have, and I really think that we all have at least
Yeah.
one piece of tangible evidence of something bigger going on, whether it's a feather going past your face when you're feeling, like in a moment of deep despair, or seeing 11:11 on a clock, or like whatever you want to make your miracle be, like this is our universe, we're designing it. But we all have at least one piece of tangible evidence that we can hold up front. Like I write it on post-its because I forget so much, even with
Do
all
you
of my
have one? Do you
I
have
have
one
I have
like that stands out?
well, I mean, I have so many moments of intuition
Yeah.
that, yeah, like I have a squirrel story. I think I shared it with you, right? Where I manifested a squirrel in the middle of winter, and then I opened up a book to a random page, a random book on a random street, random day, and it said the squirrel, and like I had just asked for a spiritual sign, and the sign was a squirrel, and it just
Yeah.
came over and over and over again. And I think that those moments are so, just to be able to hold that in your vision so that you can continue to work your way through your process is really incredible. And I love that you're talking about the 12 steps. And you mentioned, I wonder if maybe you'll talk a little bit about recovery with me. You
Yeah.
mentioned that you're a sex and love and fantasy addict, and maybe people aren't exactly clear with
Mhm.
what those things mean. So if you want to take some space and maybe share a little bit about that and a little bit about
Yeah.
your own journey, if you're willing.
Thank you. I'm passionate about talking about recovery because I really want people to know that if I can do it, you can do it. It we all have, I think, as humans, we tend to reach before we have these tools that we learn in 12 step. We have the tendency to reach for something outside of ourselves for comfort. So I know that you had just severe trauma in your life. I didn't have what people would call severe trauma, but it was my own sensitivity, my own I have just severe anxiety. I was just born that way right out of the gate. I have very, very high anxiety and very sensitive. So everything that happens is a trauma when you feel so deeply. So uh, you know, some of us reach for alcohol, some for drugs, other kinds of drugs, some for gambling. My thing was always validation from other people because I didn't feel safe unless someone else told me that I was okay. So mine was in all areas of my life, even like bosses or I had friends who bullied me as a kid and just letting people walk all over me and not having any boundaries and people pleasing. Those were my big qualifying characteristics. But it translated into romantic life by choosing people that were addicts, unavailable, emotionally unavailable, wounded, and just wanting the validation from them through sex. So I wouldn't say I'm like a sex addict in the sense that there's also they're kind of two, there's love addiction, there's sex addiction. They usually, there's both underneath it all. Sex addiction can be, you're addicted to different, I don't know if I can say it on YouTube, so I'll just, because it might censor you. So I'll just say, people are addicted to different ways of stimulating themselves or inappropriate behavior with people. And mine wasn't that as much as the sex was a way to get love. And the problem was that I've chosen people that in their own way can't love themselves. So they can't possibly love me. They can't receive my love. But when they couldn't receive my love, it was a self-fulfilling, well, then I'm not lovable. So there's something wrong with me. I was born with a big birthmark on my face right here. I have a scar, and people would point and tell me I was ugly. So that stayed with me. And every time someone would reject me, it was, yep, you're ugly. There's something wrong with you. You're weird. I was elective mute and had a birthmark on my face. So all the kids were like, that's that weird girl. I had my own classroom where I had sort of like a special teacher that would work with me. And so I always felt sort of different and weird. And I would date people who just couldn't give me that love or were inconsistent or were cheating on me and then it would always come back to me going, yeah, it's me. It's my fault. I'm defective. And then just seeking for more and more and more and then being suicidal every time that somebody would break up with me. It was like, well, that just means that I'm worthless. And so I didn't want to live anymore. So there was just a lot of pain. And, I think thank you for allowing me to speak on this because one thing that I've heard a lot of is when someone comes out as a sex and love addict, a lot of people ridicule that. Oh no, that's just an excuse because they just want to, get laid or like Tiger Woods or Eric Benet or all these celebrities that have come out and people have said, oh yeah, right. Like, sorry, that doesn't fly. And the thing is that I can tell you the pain is so very real. And I heard a heroin addict in a meeting once say, withdrawal from a person was 100 times harder than withdrawal from heroin because it's a primal instinct. We have oxytocin, dopamine, bonding chemicals. We need connection. Well, when you're connecting with somebody who's unhealthy for you, the whole thing gets skewed. So then we lose our sense of connection. So it really was in the 12-step program of trying to find my own center, but also finding, again, this is not to indoctrinate anyone, but just the concept of God, higher source, that I realized I had to learn to be my own pillar of strength and also have faith in something outside of myself. So learning self-love through acts of service, through living with integrity, through being accountable, through being honest, showing up for other people and also hearing other people's stories and knowing this is so very common. Do you know how many celebrities I've seen in those rooms? Like every people so human to get attached to people. And then the fantasy part, I always thought fantasy addiction was like Dungeons and Dragons. So I never related with that. I was like, that's not me. Or like, then I learned that what fantasy is just sort of having these unrealistic expectations of people, projecting onto them what you want them to be, even just like imagining we'll get married and we'll have a house and we'll do all those things when this person has not given me any reason to think that he's available for that. So it's that kind of thing where I didn't understand what the fantasy part was until much later that I was like, oh yeah, that's part of it is the idealizing of somebody without knowing them, assigning characteristics to them that don't belong to them, wanting them to be somebody that they're not. But it's all just to escape having to take responsibility for your own self and your own uncomfortable emotions. So it's learning to sit with those uncomfortable emotions and knowing this is not going to kill me. Feelings aren't facts. It's just a feeling.
Oof. Yes, preach.
Right.
Fantasy addiction is one of the layers of my own addiction. Like my addiction showed up in a very tangible, mainstream way with drugs and alcohol. And then in my recovery process, that was just one layer of
Yeah.
like just probably an infinite amount of layers to addiction. And what you just said is what it is. It's about the uncomfortable feelings. And in 12-step fellowship, we call it a God-sized hole. I'm trying
Mhm.
to fill this void inside of me that can truly only be satiated with my relationship with a higher power. But, my conditioning in society has never taught me that. It's just taught me that things and people and, like everything that we're indoctrinated with since we're little kids, that those will be the things to satisfy me. But nothing has satisfied me more than my community and being of service to other people and connection to other people. That's the
Same.
feeling that I've been searching for my whole life with outside circumstance. And like I finally found it. And it was so simple, like I mean, like for a
Oh,
very
yes.
complicated person, a very simple solution. So it took me a long time to get there, but I love everything that you're saying. And I think that the community aspect of it is so important. I'm wondering within your community, do you find people that kind of speak your language, speak this spiritual talk, like this
Oh my
whole
gosh,
other branch that you have?
100%. I was just talking today with my former sponsor, who's now just one of my best friends, and, we are both on the Pattern app, which is an astrology app that you match up with each other, and it tells you what your patterns are based on your birth time and all that, and we just added each other, and it said we have this karmic soulmate connection where we feel it was something about just we feel we elevate each other, and we just have this soul connection, and man, I was like, I love that woman, like, so much because she's an amazing human, but just we both have the same reference. We both started in a very dark, reckless, acting out place, and now, look, we're only human, we're not perfect, but we hung out, we went to I just went through a breakup, and so she's like, instead of me spiraling, uh, this was normally I thought 10 years ago I would have been, like, not able to function, not able to eat, I would have lost, like, 10 pounds, I wouldn't have wanted to see anybody. First go-to was, "Let's go do y" I went I went to visit her in LA, she's like, "We're gonna go do yoga, we'll hit a meeting, and we're gonna just, like, hang out all day," and we had 6 hours of just yoga and bonding and connecting and talking about our feelings and talking about spirituality, and it was like, "I'm good. I'm good." Like, I feel whole. I also understand the spiritual reason for all of this. In fact, in yoga, I sat there and went at the end as we were doing shavasana, I just said, "My higher self now goes to his higher self," and I said, "Thank you for this experience. Our soul contract has been completed. I love you." And I was like, that's the difference is I now am just like, "Okay, it's all like, I can cope." I don't feel like I know it's not personal. It's not about me. It's just something that it was not serving me right now, and it's all good. And I think that's the gift of program is I wouldn't have been able to feel that sense of wholeness independent of that person. It was that person was a drug to me, and now my drug is gone, and I'm pretty much going to die. Like, I will either take my life or somehow I'll just stop breathing because the pain is too immense.
I identify so much with everything that you're saying. And I really enjoy having these open conversations like this because there's so many people out there that don't even know that people talk about this stuff.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
mean, and also to put language around other aspects. I had never heard of fantasy addiction or limerence, which is person
mhm,
obsession. I didn't know that there was words for what I was doing. I thought that it was just something
yeah.
that I did,
Me
but there's
too.
lots of people that do it. There's a lot of us out
So
there that
many.
do these things. And yeah, like the constant need for like validation from other people. And when, in my life, when I didn't get it, like when the person rejected me, it was, yeah, like it was the end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
And today I have so much acceptance. And because I've designed the system of spiritual beliefs and knowing that I live my life by, I can literally be in a state of acceptance. I never in a million years ever could have thought that I could live my life that way. Like I've been rejected so intensely by people. And I just say, okay, this is a soul lesson. I don't like
Mhm.
this lesson. I
Yeah.
wish for class to be over immediately, but I accept that this is a lesson. And you know what? Now I know. Now I know for
Mhm.
next time when the lesson comes up again, I know how to react in a way that it won't be so devastating to me. And I've been able to really like use that as a great coping skill, like that system of beliefs. And so I love that you're talking about, the light at the end of the tunnel. That's
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
getting out of what you're saying.
And knowing that the universe is clearing space for something better, even though it's painful to detach from a person and to go from talking to them regularly for years and all of a sudden no contact and it feels scary, but now I can see, like, this is what's supposed to happen, and it is opening up doors for greater things, and it's always been that way if I just trust. And so it's all good. Like, and I'm not saying don't feel your feelings. Like, it doesn't mean I didn't have my grief and I didn't spiritually bypass. Like, I felt the feelings, I cried it out, I talked it out, and then I was like, yeah, and sometimes I'm like, I have a pang. But now I can identify that pang as like, I miss him. We're friends. Like, I miss his company. I miss his presence. I miss the connection. But it's okay. Like, we'll talk again one day. It's all good. It's just I can feel, okay, this hurts. And how does it feel? Well, it feels like a pit in my stomach. My heart feels heavy. That's okay. Like, it's uncomfortable, and I will survive this. I can get through it just with community and with my own spiritual practice. And it's okay also to have bad days, and you're not going to die.
Yeah, it's okay to be
Yeah.
human. We're here to
Yeah.
be human. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. What is your I heard you say that your mom is really open to
Yeah.
mediumship and that you have kind of a crew of friends that speak your language. I'm wondering what is your life like when you maybe explain to strangers or people that you don't know very well that you're a medium?
That's such a good question, Betty. I, don't say it to everyone. I kind of gauge. I'll sort of maybe drop a little thing just to see if they're into that stuff. And if they give me a blank stare, I don't go into it. But when I started doing this, my mom was like, don't post about it. My mom's a medium too. She doesn't practice it, but she always had abilities. And she took a class when I was a kid. It hasn't been a big part of her life, but now she's starting to rediscover it and be interested in it. So it's great to have her to bond with about it. We would go when I lived in Virginia recently, we went on some hikes in some historical battlegrounds and things. And she's like, let's practice our stuff and see if we can come up with names. And sure enough, she came up with a name and then we saw it on a plaque. And but she said, don't share about it because you might lose people might think you're crazy and I was like, no, I'm going to share because actually it's really interesting that in the last month I've had I've had to sort of weed some people out of my life who I realized were no longer in alignment. Not even because of this, but as I'm ascending and they're still seeing me as a person that I used to be, and they're not sort of supporting this new me, or they don't see me as healed, and they're still sort of talking down to me or berating me. And I was like, you know what? I'm no longer in alignment with people who put me down, trigger my shame, or don't support my growth, and who are basically telling me that my dreams are fantasy or like that I don't because, they're kind of using that against me. And I realized that the beauty is that so many people now are supportive, and it's not just my friends, it's like in the greater world there's been more acceptance and understanding around spirituality, mediumship. Most people are like, that's really cool. Only a couple times I've been like, well, and I say it expecting them to sort of I'll say, it may not be your thing, but I'm a psychic medium. And either they'll just go, oh, or they'll suddenly go, tell me everything. And that's how I know who my people are. But I don't have shame around it. I don't care if somebody thinks it's fake. I don't care if you don't believe in it. As long as you support me as a person, it's totally fine. I never push it on anybody. But when you say that you want to talk about it, set your time, like, just, I'm going to be talking about it. And I'm very proud of it and excited about it. And I want people to know because I want them to feel excited about it and to know that this isn't all there is. But as I said, I don't push it on anybody, but I am finding nothing but acceptance. I really have not received any backlash from anybody other than a stranger who's like, you're a fake and a fraud. And I'm like, I just don't respond because if my talk to any of my clients and you don't even have to. It just, they're happy, I'm happy, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what you think.
Yeah. Right. And again, that's like another state of acceptance. And I think that that's proof of spiritual healing. Like
Yeah.
it takes a very strong, healed person to say, you know what? I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
I really don't. And
Yeah.
I also know I'm not for everybody. I know that. I know that
Yeah.
my role in some people's lives is to trigger them and to bring up their own things, and they can project it back on me. And and people play that role for me too. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I don't really care what anybody thinks. Number one, I know that we live inside of a dream, so who cares? It's a dream. We're sleeping.
I just got this tattoo and it says life is but a dream.
There you go. So that's like the one thing that really keeps me level. And then the other thing is, yeah, these deep states of spiritual acceptance and surrender that we get inside of being a part of a spiritual community and doing the
Yeah.
healing work. I think the 12 steps are such an amazing tool to healing. And I also always advocate for A Course in Miracles as well. It's
Yes.
another wonderful tool for healing. I wonder if maybe we can just maybe switch gears a little bit and talk about your podcast. what
Yeah.
what brought up this inspiration to interview spiritual experiencers and create a platform for that?
I had watched tons and tons of interviews with near-death experiencers, and I was originally motivated to do a podcast about recovery from addiction. And that was what the track was. I had this whole thing where I was going to interview people in recovery, and but it was right around that time where I lost my voice, and I could speak well enough to do a podcast, I just couldn't perform. Um, and it was when I started delving more into the spiritual world to heal myself that I just became so obsessed. I was like, actually, this is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to, no, not talk about. This is what I want to know about. So selfishly, it was like, I want to hear your story, but I thought no one's going to listen. Who's going to listen to my podcast? They don't know me. I'm not an author. There's so many others out there. What's going to make mine interesting? And then I just sort of felt this pull and saying, but no one's going to do it like you're going to do it. So who cares? Do it for yourself. Do it because you love to do it and talk about it and learn about it. And then I just started with interviewing some friends of mine that were mediums or healers that I knew to start the thing off. And then I ended up, Trisha Barker was my first interview, I think my first near-death experiencer, and I had, like, no followers, and I wasn't even following her on Instagram, but I thought, when I have enough followers, I'll reach out to Trisha, and then one day I don't know, I must have commented on something, and she liked it, so I thought, that is a spiritual nudge. I wasn't even following her, and I reached out and I was like, "I only have 200 followers. Will you be on my show?" And she said, "Absolutely." Now we're great friends, and then she was able to sort of tell people, more IANDS people, about me, and kind of got into that. And it just became just this whole passion. I actually have started a side podcast called Still Standing, where I do interview people who have come through challenges, recovery, all kinds of different things, because I'm still passionate about the self-help work that I want to do, but also helping people in the realm of self-esteem and knowing that they can recover. It's like if you, Betty, and I can recover from the dark depths of despair that we were in and the self-harming behavior, anyone can.
Anybody. So true. Yeah. I mean, I love this space that you've created. I mean, yeah, you're so eloquent, and obviously you have an amazing voice. I know that you already know this. It's very
Thank
soothing
you.
to listen to you talk. I've really enjoyed this conversation today. We've really hit on a lot of different things that I think, yeah, I feel like spirit led us to talk about everything that we talked
Yeah.
about. So I just want to see if there's anything else that you'd like to share to feel more complete about our time together.
I you are also a wonderful interviewer and person. And I just really want to thank you too for the work that you're doing and you're doing it for a community, but in the process of it, you're continuing to heal yourself. And it's only when we heal ourselves that we can contribute that energy to universal healing, to helping in a world that seems so horrible at times, and we're so powerless to do anything. But we can do something, and that is just to keep radiating our light and raising up our vibration and saying no to hate and violence and even just small thinking. It's been a theme this last week, which is just don't stop keeping yourself small and shine your light, and don't be afraid to shine your light because the world needs it. It's not arrogant, it's not conceited to shine, to own your strengths, to love yourself. It actually helps everybody else too. So that's about it.
Brilliant synchronicity. Literally all week, my intuition has been, you did not come to Earth to play it small. Be big, be bold. Marianne Williamson's poem keeps popping up
That's what I
everywhere.
posted.
You posted it.
That's the poem I posted. Yep.
Somebody else posted it too, and I just keep seeing it over and you know what? When you posted that, it was right on time because I needed it in that exact moment. And then I saw another person post it too, and it was just this whole ripple, and
Oh yeah.
it was so strong. And so, yes, thank you for coming here and being big and bold and as bright as you are, and this wonderful light in the world. And thank you for your contribution to our community. And we'll see you next time. Be
Bye,
wavy.
Betty.